What is up, everybody? We are super psyched to be hanging out, chatting tonight about whatever it is that's on our minds regarding struggle. It is my belief that there's only one guarantee in life, and that is we are all going to struggle in some way, shape, or form. And this conversation and this podcast focuses on ways that we can navigate, embrace, manage, and persevere through struggle in trying to discover the very best versions of ourselves. And we're super psyched to bring to you our thoughts, what we've learned through life, and good old-fashioned stories from our lives. So I'd love to introduce my friend Todd from the West Coast, and he and I are just going to be dabbling in some awesome stories.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter. Good job. Hello, everyone. My name is Todd Ellis. Like Peter said, I'm from the West Coast, so I'm located 50 miles south of Seattle in an interesting town called Tacoma. And I've lived here for most of my life. I've had a couple stints where I left, but always seem to come back to the beautifulness of the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, I don't have a great intro at this point, but I definitely share in struggles throughout my life. And I like to think that some of how we share our struggle through those struggles is helpful for other people to navigate the same. So thanks for having me, Peter. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm super psyched. As a high school teacher up here in beautiful Vermont, I've been really struck by the important lessons of life. The things that I have learned outside of the walls of the school that I think are the most important. And so many of those lessons are in some way, shape, or form tied to struggle. So when thinking about what I wanted to share with the world, this theme of struggle has been super, super pertinent and resonating in my mind and my life. And when I was in middle school, my parents moved from one town to the other. They were adjacent towns. They just had a river running in between the two towns as the border. And my parents built the home of their dreams. And my two parents and my two brothers and I'm the middle of three boys, moved to our new town. And I had some ties in the new town because my former town did not have a lacrosse program. So I had played lacrosse at the middle school level in this new town. And when I went into my very first day of ninth grade as a 14-year-old, dripping wet, probably 98 pounds, I sought my friends out in the hallway to hang out and catch my bearings and try to understand what was about to happen with my new school, my new town, and my new friends and all this stuff. And I saw them all standing in a circle talking before the first bell, before homeroom. And I walked up to them and they're all kind of standing in a tight circle and they're all kind of talking and laughing. And I'm kind of you can picture I'm on the outskirts of this circle. And I just start laughing too, even though I didn't hear the joke, just because I really wanted to fit in. And one of them looks over at me and goes, "What the F are you laughing at, Driscoll? Get out of here." And I was like, okay. And that was the introduction to the struggle that was high school for me. That led me to lose a lot of belief in myself, lose a lot of confidence. And looking back, I had no idea that struggle through those high school years would be so profound throughout the rest of my life, even to this day as we're having this conversation. And so when I look back and think about what's the first time that I could really remember pertinent struggle in my life, that is one of the first times. And I mean, I'm blessed in that I had a really enjoyable, smooth elementary and middle school come up. But that high school experience was something that has really, really shaped me. And I think that may be a theme throughout this podcast as we make one episode after another.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I have so many questions. That's just funny. Yeah, we can get into that later, I guess. It was just so interesting that high school is the inflection point for you. Like, that's where it all kind of culminated, right?
And being literally physically the smallest kid in the school. Like everyone can think of their high school class and the physically smallest human being in that group. Yeah. That was me. So wherever I went, I was physically the weakest on every team I played on and every friend group I hung out in. And I think because of that, and that was kind of drilled into my head, and I was reminded of my littleness. My nickname was Little Drisk. That really had it crushed me. It really did. And because of that, was able to build myself back up over the years. But that was the first time that I can really remember, like, day after day, really going through this intense struggle. So I can thank my parents so much for providing me with such an amazing life, and that I'm super grateful for, the super easy flow of elementary and middle school. And it became real when I got to high school, and I wouldn't give it up for a second. It shaped me into who I am. And we'll talk more about this going forward, but it really switched. And looking back, I didn't recognize at the time, but when I found fitness, when fitness became an integral part of my life, that's when things switched. So I'm super excited to talk about that struggle and many other struggles and stories that we have in our life. But I wanted to ask you, what are you psyched about in doing this pod?
Wow. I mean, I'm psyched in just learning more about you, actually. So that's pretty cool. When I think about podcasts overall, and kind of, I never really thought about being in one, which, like, I've been interviewed a podcast a few times, but I've never been involved with the production or co-hosting or whatever you want to call it. And so when we talked about this last week, I thought about kind of the theme, like, what does jazz me up about this, right? And I think there's a wide range of it. But when I start to think about my own struggle after you shared that so eloquently, I think that I formulated kind of a, what do you call it, a mission statement or a personal statement in the last 10 years, maybe, of my life. Obviously through this long path that I've already came on, which differs obviously from yours, which is awesome. But I think that my mission is to inspire and empower others that through my experience, if that's an entry point to it, that they can have an awakening, or they can have a realization that they can be a better version of themselves than they ever thought possible, right? And so I've given that to other people sometimes, and they say, well, that's kind of that's kind of egotistical, or and I've thought about ways to clean that up a bit. But when I listen to your story and I think about my own recount, and I look at the Better Than Yesterday, I think that that's truly what it is. And I think that if I can play a role in that, somehow, that by sharing my experiences, or by sharing my own struggles and what they meant to me and how I experienced them, I think that ultimately that goes towards my goal, right? My values and what I'm trying to do. So that gets me jazzed up. I have a very difficult time with my own family. I have 3 sons and a daughter. My 3 sons I struggle with profoundly because I have a very hard time connecting with them in an emotional kind of way. And so I think even if I can't do that in person, or if I have a very difficult time articulating that in real time, I think if they're able to maybe come back and connect with something that is of me, not like a legacy, but like if I can say, hey, go check it out in the show notes, that's a little easier for me to record just because I'm having a conversation with you. I think that that's a stepping stone in the right direction. So I'm pretty jazzed about that. And then I think that it's just great to have a place where people can go, people who are interested can go and learn about other people's stories and struggle. I think that by sharing that, a lot of times, in my experience in the past, everybody tries to like glorify it or glam it up or somehow polish their stories to make it seem like, they're trying to get, 100 likes, or, there's something behind it. And I just like to share my story. And if it resonates with people, you can come get more, or, I can tell you what's happened, or we can even, drill deep into those things and discover a bit more about what was behind them. And I think that those things resonate more with individuals than just, here's a polished story and go check it out. Right. So yeah, that's what's driving me.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I'm super psyched that we get to talk about all the different variations that struggle can present itself in our lives. So I think oftentimes when we hear struggle, we think of like the really big stuff, but just the small knick-knacky kind of struggles that can present themselves in our day-to-day, I think it'd be really, really fun to talk about. And in addition to that, what I think is really cool about struggles, obviously we can all identify with it, but how struggle actually can be the conduit for excellence or for progress or improvement. And we can talk about how we actually can take our struggle and do amazing things with it. The obstacle is the way. And the reason why I asked Todd to join me on this podcast is because in our interactions, he was the one who introduced me to the concept, the book, and the mindset of the obstacle is the way. So whatever it is that we're challenged with or faced by, it's not in the way of the journey. It is the journey. And I'm really excited to dive deep into some of those conversations about different types of struggle, be it the big stuff like my high school experience and what that really manifested into for the 20 or plus years following that, or just a little stuff like I cannot figure out how to teach my daughter how to tie her shoes. Like we've been doing this now for 2 months and she just can't get tied her shoes, and she goes to school and all her classmates tie her shoes for her. Obviously they can do it. So it's just little stuff like that I'm really excited to talk about. And as a teacher, I'm super excited to have the opportunity to continue to educate my students long beyond their years on my rosters in class, so that they will be able to, if they want, tune in, listen, and get some lessons from Mr. D. But I think the most important stuff that we learn in life, we don't learn in school, which is why we chose the name of this, Schooling Struggle, because we are going to take struggle and use it to be a better versions of ourselves. And we're going to be schooling struggle. So I'm really looking forward to some awesome conversations, some awesome stories. And yeah, just I was telling people when I was setting this podcast up that the really cool thing for me is that you can't just really call. So I guess you could, but it'd be kind of weird to call someone and be like, hey, do you want to have a really awesome conversation? All right, let's carve out an hour and a half. But now we can reach out to people and say, hey, we have this podcast. Do you want to have a conversation with us? And people are like, oh yeah, podcast. That makes sense. I'll have a conversation with you guys, or we'll just talk to each other. And now I have this time built into my week, an hour and a half every single week to have these awesome conversations. And I don't have to try to make time for those conversations anymore because it is now a regular part of my week. And I'm so fired up about that. Super psyched.
That's pretty cool. Cause I remember early on after we met, we'll dive into that, I'm sure, at some point, but I remember thinking, I wonder if Peter will reply. I'll text him, I'll shoot him real quick. I wonder what he's doing. And then like this whole gamut of things goes, he's probably busy teaching these kids and he's probably doing all these things. So it is awesome that it's dedicated time. And it's something that I didn't really put a point on, but it is nice to have intentional time, right, to do something like that, because I think we miss that. Like we like to think it'd be awesome to do, but then when you're really doing it, it's like becomes habitual. And I think that's how you build that habit. So good point.
Yeah. And just taking this podcast on for me is a high level of struggle in many ways, especially on the tech end. This is so far outside of my comfort zone and such a steep learning curve for me to do a lot of the things that we need to do to actually produce this thing. And as we record, we still don't know how we're going to get this out for ears to hear, but we'll figure it out. And, as Todd shared with me very early on in our correspondence, that without struggle, there is no progress. And we are both going to progress in some way, shape, or form from these conversations. And I'm really thrilled about that.
Yeah, that's going to be fun to watch. It was interesting when not to watch, well, it'll be fun to watch you go through it, but it'll be fun to experience myself. When I was listening to you talk about the struggles and the sizes of the struggles, the knickknacks and the paddywhacks. But the interesting thing to me is that through my own experience, I've noticed that it's the smallest one that starts the thing, right? It's like, oh, well, it was just this one day I was having a bad day. And then suddenly that evolved into, who knows, I got in a car accident. I mean, but it's noticing that struggles stack. I think that's an important thing to talk about is your struggle may feel like it's so large, or, you can remember it in such a grandiose way. But if you really begin to deconstruct those things, typically it's like there was multiple struggles at one time, and then they just begin to accumulate. So it'll be interesting to tease those out of my own experience too. So pretty cool.
One thing I'm really good at is thinking that what I'm dealing with is very small potatoes in everyone else's world. So I tend to keep that stuff in, and some of my struggles don't get shared because I'm like, anyone that I'm going to share this with is going to have bigger fish to fry. So I'm not going to bother them with this. And I think this is a good chance for us to have a conversation to say, no, like, let's acknowledge what we have going on and use it to strive to be a better version of ourselves. And I know I've said that multiple times already in the 15 minutes we've been talking, but that is going to be something that we look at a lot over the course of our conversations is how can we be the best versions of ourselves? And navigating that struggle and owning that struggle is a big part of it. I often tell my students, the one thing that I really want you to take away from this class is not to let life do you, but to go do life. And to do life, you need to be able to embrace the struggles that are both imposed upon us against our will and the struggles that we bring into our lives, whether we know it or not. I have the students say, "Oh, Mr. D, I'm so sick of all the drama and my friends won't stop with the drama on social media." And I said, well, you can't fight fire with fire. If you're someone who's surrounded by drama all the time, that might be a red flag that you could be bringing drama in your world. Yeah. And oftentimes we don't even recognize the struggle that we're inviting in our world through our actions. So often I have a big sign on my office door, and I often say to my students, I think the saying goes, "I'm sorry, I cannot hear what you're saying because your actions speak so loudly." So how do our actions play a role in the different types of struggle that are present in our lives?
Yeah. I mean, really, that's all we have, right, is our response. And that's an interesting point of awareness that is so easy to miss. Like you said, it's easy to overlook. I was reading a book. I don't know. I listen to a lot of books, but there was one in there that made a point that was clear that kind of came up when you said that. It's life isn't happening to us; it's happening for us. And I think that having that way to put it through a lens like that helps to understand. These are struggles that are meant to be here. And I think a lot of people try to push them away, but the harder you try to push those things away, obviously the bigger they become until they're so monolithic that they just, they slam you down or push you around. And really it's all up to us. So those are good points.
Yeah. So in wrapping this up, I've been asked, why are you going to do this podcast? Actually, I haven't told many people that we're launching this, like just a couple, and they'll say why. And my response is because I have a message to share, and I'm really excited to just share what I'm learning. My values, as I've stated them in my life, and I've taken them from other people, is to live, love, learn, and lead with a strong mind, a healthy body, and a grateful spirit. And I think that this podcast is in line with all of those. And I'm super psyched to explore deep with you about the different ways that people can school struggle.
Yeah, that's cool. I can't wait. I can't wait to glean some of those from you because I struggle with myself with a few of those key points you just made. So I think it'll be a learning experience, and I'm very happy to be on it with you, Peter.
Awesome. Well, thanks for listening if you still are, and looking forward to releasing some podcasts for your ears to find the best way that you can navigate, persevere through, and utilize struggle to be the best version of yourself. Peace out.
Peace.